All right, welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris. Next to me here is the frame of my 1964 Triumph TR4. You can see there's a big hole here. This is what came out of it. It's all pitted and rusted and nasty. Some kind of holes that you can see through in there. But we got to make a patch here to replace this piece, and it gets a little tricky because it's bent and it's folded over like a t-shirt in here. So we'll see if we can figure something out and get this thing repaired. Thanks for watching. Let's get it sorted. So this here is the only portion of the frame that I found any damage on. You can see there's a hole here, and what had happened is that portion of the floor had rotted out, so the rainwater was just able to sit on there and slowly eat it away. So what I'm going to do is try to take, this is a C section, C channel here. You got a large one here and a smaller one on the inside, and they're sandwiched together. But my intention here is to take this top C channel off down to about halfway down or so, where the major damage stops. Cut all that out and get a new piece and weld it back in. So I've got to hammer form a piece and then make that curve. And if you can see here, there's like buckles here, and it's really pronounced on the other side. And all they did was essentially do pie cuts in here so they could make that curve. So we'll see. I'm not real sure. I'm not going to cut anything until, you know, I've got a piece figured out, and I'm worried about this seam up here because it's a gazillion spot welds in there, and they look pretty major, so I'm not probably going to have to grind it away. I'm not quite sure how else I can do that because I can't, this kind of stuff you can't really drill out. So, and I don't want to if I can help it. So we'll see how it goes here. But first up is going to be getting a piece of metal that's sized to fit and hammer formed and all that kind of good stuff. So that's what we're going to do. Got my piece of metal here. It's about 13 inches long or so, and it's wider than it needs to be. That's all right. And underneath of it, I've got a piece of 1/4 inch steel plate, and that's going to be my form to try to give me the radius that I want. Now this 1/4 inch could be a little bit thicker, but I don't have anything thicker that will help me make that radius. And I'd like to get more clamps on this too, but I can't get in there with it. So I'm just going to hammer on this and hopefully bend it and it not, you know, make that the curve, and then worry about the pie after that, the pie cuts. This is also 14 gauge. The frame is 16 gauge, so it's a little bit thicker. I'm not going to stress out about that. I think it'll be all right. But let's see if we can't hopefully get this thing at least bent in half here. I don't have my little dinky brake is definitely not strong enough to bend this. So, all right, well, unfortunately that's not working because what's happened is it's starting to bow here because it's not clamped. Maybe just put it in the vise, but then that's going to give me a really sharp curve, which I don't want. But I'll try that real quick, I think. Well, nothing like a form that is the form itself. So I got it clamped to the frame here. Hopefully I don't do any damage. I don't think I will, but that'll give me a guarantee on the radius, I guess. So we'll see if this works. Yep, that seems to be working. So now this radius is going to be a little bit bigger because it's on the outside. So I'm going to now take it over to the vise, hopefully, and finish it up. Try to get it a little bit tighter. All right, so that looks pretty good. It's a little still finesse, obviously, to do, and I'll have to cut this piece down. But now, while I'm here and have it in this form, I want to go ahead and put the pie cuts in it. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to figure that out on the proper place to put it, other than use the existing cuts, I guess, where I can see in the frame here where they did it. I can try that. So this is the pie cut. Over on the other side, you can see all the welding and everything, and it doesn't look like they actually removed metal. It looks like they slit it and you know, overlapped it instead of you know, actually cutting a wedge out. So I think I'll try that. I don't know if that's going to work. And I also have to worry about, you know, now making that curve. But instead of cutting an actual groove out of it, maybe we'll just try to overlap. All right, so I'll just stick it up here. Make sure I got enough. All right, we'll go put a slit in that and come back. Got the relief cuts in and got this piece formed up pretty well. It still needs to shrink up a little bit, but I can do that when I go, I think, for final fit. So I need to weld this stuff up, obviously, but I don't think I'm going to do that until I get this in there. But I got to clean all the galvanizing off of it before I do that. I should have done that before I started bending. But if you don't galvanize and galvanizing one, it's terrible. It messes the weld up, and two, it gives off noxious fumes. So obviously, you don't want to be playing around with that stuff. But the next step here is to get the this whole old chunk of stuff out, and I'm leery. I'm afraid of doing that because of all this mess in here and just causing some damage here. But I don't really have much of a choice. Like I said, I'm going to try to grind this seam out instead of drilling it out because there's just way too many welds in there. The other thing I got to do is also get holes drilled in this because I got to obviously do plug welds here. So still a lot of work to do here, but I'm happy with the way this thing came out so far. So we'll keep moving down the path. Now, if I remember right, I did a frame repair to the Spitfire. I had to replace both outriggers, and that was welded like this. And if I remember right, what happens is you'll start to see the upper, as you get closer and the metal that you're grinding away gets thinner and thinner and thinner, you'll start to see it start to glow red. And when you see that, you know that you're close to it being almost gone. So hopefully I'll be able to use that as a guide a little bit here. No, that's in actually surprisingly halfway decent shape. Probably could have just treated that, but oh well. So that's that piece. Inside of the frame looks really good. They've got some sort of paint on the inside, so that seems to have helped. There's some rust in there, but nothing significant. Some bugs and little drops of weld bead or something on the rocks and stuff in here. So we'll go ahead and get that cleaned out. And they did not cut the frame here. It looks like that they just folded it over on itself. So that's what you have when you have big industrial machinery. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this cleaned up, get it straightened up, get the excess metal from that piece off of here, and then start dressing it up and getting ready to do final fit on the new piece. All right, well, there's the big gaping hole. Like I said, there's some sort of coating in here, very little rust. So that's a good sign. I didn't think they coated anything on the insides of these, but there it is. So I'll shine a light down there and see if I can see anything gross, but I don't think I'm going to find anything wrong here. So we'll continue on. Pretty much at final fit here. Got the holes punched in at the top for the top of the C channel there. The only place I really can't get fit yet, and that's, I'll take the hammer to it and try to work it, is I can't get this curve to be nice and smooth here. It's more of a break and flat. So I think I'm just going to take the hammer to it, should try to knock a curve into it. And I want to go ahead and weld up these seams real quick so that gets nice and strong. And then I might try to put 2 more holes in there, but I couldn't drill it when it was, when it was flopping around on the drill press. And then I need to paint the inside of it, just get that in just regular primer. And then I'll do weld through primer, tape it off, do weld through primer where the holes are. And then, prep this for weld through primer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's coming along pretty good. I'm happy with with how it's working, it's coming out, frankly, a little bit better than I thought it would. Paint has been applied, so next up we'll get the tape off there after this stuff dries out, and then get some weld-through primer on there. I'm going to shoot some weld-through primer on the seam of the frame itself too, and we'll be ready to weld that thing in. I did get some warpage in the panel when I was welding it, but nothing that some clamps as I go through and all that kind of stuff. That'll take care of that. So moving right along. So I'm prepped up, ready to weld here. I got weld-through primer on the back side of the new piece. And on the inside of the frame, all that looks good. Cleaned it up a little bit. It is, like I had mentioned earlier, I did get a little bit of heat deformation, so there's a slight twist in it. So I'm going to have to push down on this side and then put a tack in. This is heavier gauge steel, so I shouldn't really have to worry about spot welding it, the little dot welds, stitch welding or whatever you call it. I should be able to go a little bit further. So I'm not going to go full blown, weld arc nonstop, because this isn't like 1/4 inch stuff, but I should be able to get away with a little bit better. It is also a little bit proud over here, which I'm just going to frankly smash down. Some of that's because of the gauge thickness being a little bit different, right? This is 16 gauge this is 14 gauge, excuse me, in the frame 16, but I'm not going to worry about too much about that either. But otherwise it fits pretty good, even where I was having a little problems here. It's good enough. Nothing to let a little grinding won't take care of. But we're just going to go ahead and, yeah, we should be ready to go. I think I'm getting really good penetration here, so I'm going to bump the wire, and bump the amperage up a little bit and the wire speed. Just feels like I'm getting too much of a caterpillar. All right, if you haven't seen that trick before, all you do is you take a drill bit of the same size that you did your plug weld and grind it flat. And then you can go in and any of the paint that's inside that hole, you can essentially scratch out of there. I had mentioned in the past that I thought weld-through primer meant you could actually weld through it. In other words, it staying there was not that big of a deal, but that's not the case. And you got to get that stuff out of there. More of the same here. I got over on this side. Now I'm going to come over here and I am going to bounce around a little bit, even though I'm not as concerned with heat here as I am for, the body, the sheet metal on the body. Still not a bad idea. So we'll go ahead and move her down the line on the plug welds and all the rest of the seam welds. You're wondering why I'm hammering, that's called planishing. Frankly, not really sure that it matters on thicker metal like this, or even if it's helping me at all, but it's supposed to, essentially you're going to get shrinkage as the weld cools, and the planishing will tend to knock it back out. Can't really see if there's any warpage in here, but it's pretty hot. I'm going to finish this little corner off here and then give this thing a rest. All right, so I'll go ahead and clean up these welds and I'll come back and show you when she's all done. Far from perfect, but I think it's better than it was. And I'm glad that this other piece behind here is in there to provide me some structural rigidity to prevent it from flexing on me. I'm not real crazy about the welds down here and how much penetration I got. But again, the plug welds I know are solid, so I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be okay. So I'll call that a successful repair. Thanks everybody for watching, liking, comment, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. I appreciate all the support and the thumbs up and everything that keeps me motivated. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.